In this session, we'll provide an introduction to this module and to the subject of small business and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the process of designing, launching and running a new business, and that business is generally a small business. And for reference, the terms entrepreneurship, startup, small business and business venturing are often used interchangeably, and you'll encounter these terms frequently during the course of this module. So in terms of learning outcomes, by the end of this session you should be able to provide a definition of entrepreneurship, identify the key characteristics of an entrepreneur, describe the key challenges facing the owner-entrepreneur managing a small business, and lastly also reflect on your own qualities as a potential entrepreneur through a range of practical exercises. Now, depending on your chosen programme, this module will either employ a mix of traditional lectures with classroom-based workshops and tutorials, or it will involve a fully online delivery with digital lectures and digital tutorials supported by a discussion thread on Moodle. But whichever the delivery route, we'll be using case studies, practical exercises and group activities to develop your own entrepreneurial perception and skills, and we'll also learn through discussions and personal reflection. Some of the case studies we're using here will be businesses we've personally worked with, whilst others will be based on the business plans developed by fellow students for enterprise modules such as this one. Business Acceleration is designed to provide a foundation for students in enterprise and small business, which will be developed further in other modules. Now, in order to get the most out of your studies, you must take responsibility for your own learning and engage with both staff and fellow students, and you'll therefore be expected to participate in group discussions, submit coursework on time, respect your fellow students and respect your teaching and support staff. To do this, you'll need to attend classes, prepare for tutorial sessions, take notes, read recommended reading and review materials provided for the preparation of assessments. We'll also need you to complete assessments by the given deadlines and to agreed standards, and you'll need to work independently or as part of a team to do this. Ultimately, with this module though, you'll get out of it what you put in. Now, there are no formal examinations here, however there are two assignments which you must pass. Assignment 1 is a group project and Assignment 2 is an individual project. All assessments will be fairly marked, and you should note and adhere to the deadlines for each assignment, which can be found in the module handbook. Students must attempt all elements of the assessment and must achieve a combined overall mark of 40% from all elements of assessment, with no mark being less than 30%. Any work submitted up to 1 week late will have a 10% penalty deducted from the mark. So if the original mark was 57%, this will become 47%. Any submissions made after 1 week will be noted but not marked. And with the group project, we'll also need to see that everyone in your group has taken part and made a contribution. If we can't see that you've made a contribution, we can't give you the marks. We've provided a checklist of what we're looking for and where the marks will be awarded. So if what you do is not listed in the checklist, it won't get marks. If you miss out any of the criteria, we can't give you marks for those elements. So the message here is quite simple: follow the checklist. In addition to the assignments, you'll be expected to engage with all tutorials, whether these tutorials are delivered in class or online. If you do not prepare for the tutorials, you'll not be prepared, and therefore you'll not be able to contribute fully to the module. So let's look more closely at the assignments themselves. Assessment 1 is a group feasibility plan worth 60% of the total mark, and this should be a maximum of 2,000 words. And here, students will be expected to develop a credible feasibility plan for a new business using a variety of appropriate tools to highlight the core areas of distinction and differentiation and the opportunities and threats which the business is likely to face in the current and future climate. Assessment 2 is an individual report which is worth 40% of the total mark and should be a maximum of 1,000 words. In this assignment, students will employ appropriate tools to evaluate their own personal skills inventory, to identify resources required for the hypothetical business venture discussed in Assessment 1, and to discuss where these resources might be accessed. Both assignments will be uploaded to Turnitin using the appropriate link in the assessment section of the module on Moodle. Now, as university students, you should know that everything you say must be supported by evidence. So you need to find reports, newspaper and magazine articles and online material to justify your comments in the assessments, and all work must be properly referenced using the Harvard referencing system. The University Library Guide on Referencing will remind you of what is required there. So what do we know about entrepreneurship and small business? Well, there are a number of popular misconceptions around entrepreneurship, and we'll explore some of these later. However, the definitions here highlight some of the key aspects of a small business. However, this first definition does not accurately reflect the majority of small businesses which exist. Most small businesses are actually very small indeed. And the second definition is more representative of the reality of the nature of a small business. The terms small business and SME are often used to mean the same thing. SMEs, or small and medium enterprises, refer to the nano and micro enterprises, small businesses and medium-sized firms, and SMEs are the most common form of business worldwide. But small businesses are not simply smaller than larger businesses, they're fundamentally different in many ways. So if we look at the characteristics of a small business, we find that generally small firms usually have only one or two owners, and most of the financing is provided by the owner themselves, particularly in the startup phase. Small businesses have a limited market share and often have a limited lifespan. They are sometimes run on a part-time basis and have a limited product or service offering with low levels of net profit, and those businesses are also often home-based. Small businesses are often also geographically limited and only trade within their immediate local area, and they're also often a family-run business. However, small businesses collectively have a tremendous impact on the economy and society, as these statistics show. 99% of all UK businesses are SMEs, and there are over 4.8 million SMEs in the UK currently. Small and medium enterprise employed nearly 15 million people in the UK in 2013, and they bring an awful lot of money into the UK economy, as we can see. But running a business has both ups and downs. On the plus side, running a small business allows an individual to be their own boss, and the entrepreneur is often also able to align interests with work by starting a business in an area which is also their hobby. Clearly, there are also potential financial rewards from running one's own business, which can in time also provide opportunities for family members and friends. However, there's also a downside that in self-employment, there's always a degree of uncertainty and ambiguity, especially in the early stages of the business. Also, the interest or hobby in which the business is based can become the entrepreneur's job, which sometimes can take some of the enjoyment out of things. There's also obviously potential for financial loss, and this risk must be understood and accepted by anyone thinking of starting their own business. And clearly, there'll be increased responsibilities for the individual, as in a small business, the owner must perform most or all of the key duties themselves, particularly at the start of the business. So with this in mind, what skills, qualities, attributes or characteristics would you need to start and manage a small enterprise? Well, let's look at some of the common characteristics of the entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are responsible for overseeing and supervising a company's activities and employees. Business managers report to top executives in a larger organisation, but in a small company that the entrepreneur owns himself, the manager might either own the company or report directly to the owner. In many businesses, the role of business manager may grow out of a small business owner's desire to offload some of the multiple roles that I've just mentioned in order to focus on other aspects of the company, such as expansion or market penetration. The business manager for a time may share duties with the owner as the owner gains trust in the business manager, and ideally the business manager and the business owner will work in synergy to ensure that the business of running a successful enterprise is attended to. This can often be a process of the owner giving up the functions for which there is a disadvantage for his or her continued involvement. Perhaps they're just not that good at that. Now, it's important to remember here that not every individual will possess all the common entrepreneurial attributes. However, the key characteristics of the successful entrepreneur are widely accepted, and here are some examples of these. So first we have creativity, which involves being able to generate and develop creative ideas and solutions. Another important quality is leadership, and the effective business manager needs to be able to lead by example, making decisions decisively and being a role model to others. Next we have goal orientation, which involves being able to focus on the objective without worrying too much about how to actually achieve it. Innovation is also a key entrepreneurial quality, which is the ability to commercialise an idea or make it happen and gain value from it for the business and the customer. Team building is also important, which involves being able to gather followers to share in the entrepreneur's vision. As is risk taking, which involves not being afraid to take measured and calculated risks. Dynamism can also be a factor, as entrepreneurs, especially the very successful ones, are often charismatic, energetic, enthusiastic and passionate about their ideas. They're also generally good problem solvers, and entrepreneurial people are not easily put off by barriers or obstacles that stand in their way, and they usually exhibit a high level of commitment and demonstrate resilience and a determination to get the job done. Now let's see how well developed your own entrepreneurial qualities are. So thinking about what we have just discussed, complete the short entrepreneurial test and scorecard on Moodle, which will give you a score out of a possible 100% and reflect on these questions. Firstly, if the average person scored themselves at 50%, where are you on the scale? Next from this, what do you feel is getting in the way of a higher score? So here, look at the questions where you gave yourself a low score. Now think about what you could do to improve your score. And lastly, from these results, do you feel that you're suited to managing a small business? The purpose of this exercise is to gain some insight into your own strengths and weaknesses in the key areas which are important to the individual responsible for running a small business. And remember, the individual assignment for this module asks you to reflect on this. The test itself is subjective, there's no right or wrong answer. So now let's look at the reality of starting a small business. Shaper et al. 2013 identified 3 key factors for the owner-entrepreneur to consider, not just a startup, but on an ongoing basis throughout the business's development. And these are the goals and abilities of the owner-manager, the available resources, and also the business opportunity. Now, whilst it's extremely likely that many of you will end up working in a small business, very few individuals will actually manage to get a business off the ground, and this is because not everyone has the desire to start a business. Of those that do, not all will attempt to start up, and of those who attempt, not all will succeed in starting up. And a common reason why this is the case is that they're unable to obtain the resources that Shaper mentions, and they need to set up a business to gather the resources that are essential in order for them to give the business the best possible chance. So these resources fall into several categories, and the first of these is organisational resources, and here the size of the company will determine the type of activities the manager performs. For example, in a larger organisation, a production manager might direct team or group leaders who then oversee the scheduling and output of workers. In a smaller company, the owner manager might perform these activities himself. We also need to think about financial resources, and a business will always need to be looking at these. We've also got to think about technological resources, and these are important to the business's operations. Technology plays an important part in the day-to-day running of the business in areas such as manufacturing or e-commerce. But we also need to think about physical resources, and this relates to the tangible capital resources which are used by the business usually over a longer period of time, such as equipment, machinery and buildings. We also have to think about human resources, and these are the personal qualities that will be helpful to the entrepreneur in performing their work in an efficient and effective manner. For example, a business manager should be willing to accept criticism from the employees, develop social skills, be organised, honest, and be able to take good decisions and develop good relationships with their employees. Also, business managers should be good listeners in order to identify the needs of the employees and the customers. If the business manager injects positive attitudes to the employees will be more efficient. In other words, a good business manager should be willing to work alongside his or her employees in order to create a better work environment and a prosperous company. Reputation can also be said to be a resource, and effective business managers develop a positive reputation through the adoption of a particular management style and by setting an example to employees. Autocratic, paternalistic, democratic and laissez-faire are a few common styles of management. Autocratic management allows a business owner to be the main individual responsible for making decisions and driving the company through the business environment. Paternalistic management looks to create the best work environment for every employee. And business owners will use a democratic management style when they allow employees to have input or feedback on business decisions. Whilst laissez-faire styles create the most employee autonomy and allows decisions to be made with little business owner oversight. But regardless of the business owner manager's individual style, there'll always be significant challenges facing the individual entrepreneur, and those challenges can take many forms. There are likely to be significant challenges around training and support. As in a large organisation, most employers require a minimum of a university degree in business management or a related discipline to qualify for a position as a business manager. And business managers generally in organisations must have excellent written and verbal communication skills to direct employees and lead the company. However, in a small business, there's no such barrier, and as a result, this can cause problems. Challenges can also be experienced around systems, as business owners start with a blank canvas and must therefore develop their own operating, staffing, marketing systems and other systems completely from scratch. Time can also present challenges, as in a young developing small business, considerable time is wasted through learning by mistakes, and ultimately time is money. Developing the product or service will also be challenging for the entrepreneur, as in a new small business, generally the product is not well established and it can be difficult to get customers behind the product as a result. And lastly, there'll be financial challenges, as raising capital and managing cash flow is always a challenge for the small business, regardless of how long the company itself has actually been trading. So now, thinking about everything we've learned in this session, let's look at a real world example which highlights some of the key entrepreneurial theory we've just explored. So to do this, look at the short video in Moodle of MGB services and consider the following questions. Firstly, what skills, qualities, attributes and experience does the owner-manager bring to the table? Next, what evidence can you see of entrepreneurial behaviour here? And lastly, it's widely known that many small businesses fail within 5 years, and we'll look at why this might be the case later in the module. But how do you think MGB Services was doing 5 years down the line?